I was reading the Faraway Times manifesto, How to Make Good Small Games, agreeing with its points and paying attention to the games it chooses to mention. Now, I think a lot of people don't tend to check out the games that are used as examples in essays like this. I don't think a lot of people play the games used as examples or subjects in videos either. There's a certain sense of detachment from them, a level of implicit trust given to the author to generally know what they're talking about, know that the games they use are good examples, and know that they're relevant, well placed, and feed into the topic. I know this because it's what I do. But I've been making it a point to go out of my way to play small, interesting games I see online, and the game at the end of the third bullet point caught my eye. Right there's this amazingly enticing screenshot of a character from, I think, Higurashi, with a bunch of terrible looking unaliased pixel circles, a cute girl with a gun standing in the corner, a level that was very blatantly made by hue shifting a photo of some bricks and then cutting rectangular geometry out of it. Obviously, since I like to think I have taste, I went to the page and played through it. Now, I don't really care about spoilers. I widely think you should probably get over it if you care about them that much. But it's undeniable that there's a lot of comedy in Reena Game that will probably not hit as hard as if you don't encounter it yourself. So, the game. Reena Game. I have no idea who Reena is, but I love the terrible Cool Fonts JPEG logo. I'm pretty familiar with this general style of game because I'm in my early 20s, didn't go outside a lot growing up, only used terrible hand-me-down office work laptops until I was 19, and didn't have a lot of money to spend on video games. So, safe to say I played a lot of what I'll affectionately call garbage. Lowbrow flash games, I Want to Be the Boshi, Happy Wheels, Cave Story, Super Meat Boy at such an inconsistent frame rate that sometimes I'd die by clipping through the level collision, stuff like that. I know this kind of janky, difficult freeware game well, and I love them. The immediate Reena Game first impression is that it hits this on an aesthetic and mechanical level instantly. The levels all use that classic the texture is the hitbox style, everything has this disgusting, crusty bilinear filtering to it, especially when zoomed in, and the player's hitbox can only generously be described as noticeably rectangular. The game's sense of humour fits too. It's not really hard to notice that every single enemy sprite is a screenshot from a visual novel, or an anime, or a music video, and the only direction the game gives you is to defeat 9 bosses and see the ending. It's very straightforward and somehow knows exactly what it wants to be. That is to say, Reena Game is a tight experience. It's funny, I laughed out loud a lot, I think the visual design works amazing with the sound design, I think the mechanics are very well implemented, I love the push and pull between needing to turn left and right to aim while also needing to block projectiles with your shield, and it doesn't overstay its welcome either in its boss fights or as an experience. So, great stuff. If you're looking for a weird recommendation for a web game to play Reena Game. There's a bit where you get put on a hoverboard and you think, okay, the game's gonna have me do some boss fights in this thing now to spice it up, and then you immediately run into a no hoverboard sign and are back to walking. That was a very Mega Man sprite game joke to me, and I found it quite charming. The game's charming. There's a lot more little bits like that that give the game a lot of personality. And that's something interesting to me. This game has a personality. It's charming, it has a real authorial voice, and yet it's made entirely out of plundered assets, satisfying jank and hot glue. Reena Game is so interesting to me in many ways because it feels antithetical to how games, entertainment, and art are treated in our current day. It's free, unpolished, derivative of, and in parody of commercial IP. If itch.io wanted to shift into being a serious site that appeals to shareholders, this is the kind of game they would incinerate right away. And if IP law were even tighter, this is the kind of work the creators of Ranma or Higurashi or Darude could claim infringes their rights. And I don't think Reena Game is that deep. I think a lot of its beauty comes from experience of interacting with the piece and drawing conclusions through observations and analysis. So maybe a lot of what I've taken away from it is just freak aspects of my personality. I love awful bilinear filtering, I love when music juxtaposes action, I love copyright infringement, I love when you can just walk past a boss fight to skip it entirely, and then its battle music will continue playing for the rest of the game until the ending's finished. I'm very predisposed to like this game, and its attitude and the guiding philosophy I've interpreted brings me to PlunderLudex. PlunderLudex, itself playfully derivative of Plunderphonics, is stated as an approach to game development, using existing video games as raw material to make new video games, think collage, remix, sampling, etc. The stated movement itself is pretty niche, but you can make a real case for its scope being wide, encapsulating many unrelated movements like modding and speedrunning, where users transform often wide appeal games into much nicher experiences through techniques like alternative play and source code modification. I first came across PlunderLudex as a movement through the Hoftians newsletter promoting a workshop Boshi's Place ran at their experimental game space in Brooklyn. Now, Unfortunately, I live a couple miles away from New York City, so I couldn't attend, but I was fascinated by it. I love the philosophy behind it, I love the expression of play, and I love how it manifests as something antithetical to the brand consolidation dragon that every large entertainment company wants to ride. They don't have a ton of works showcased, but they have a good few, like Mario Tag, Mario's Bro Skater 2, and Auto Mario, otherwise known as Good Luck. These Mario-centric works really evoke some classic older pieces like Cory Archangel's Super Mario Clouds or Enuigi, and I think it's pretty hard to assume that wasn't intentional to some degree, and I love that. The layers of inspiration, stealing, remixing, whatever you want to call it, go beyond the text of the games into the inspiration behind them and the ideas being conveyed. There's a little bit of confusing and redundant terminology when talking about remixing games, mostly due to how classic the idea "let's remix a commercial product" is. Auto Mario calls itself a metagame, linking to the terminology from the book Metagaming, playing, competing, spectating, cheating, trading, making and breaking video games, by Stephanie Balouk and Patrick Lemieux. Art that riffs off of and parodies commercial products are great. Personally, I think there's a real need to keep things subversive. I have no bigger pet peeve than when a fan scene is creative, subversive and experimental while riffing off of an existing work, then the IP holder sees that and either tries to shut it down or subsume it into its own brand identity. It's pretty obvious to see Reena Game as a work parallel to PlunderLudex, with that same crash and burn philosophy of stealing and parodying and joking and playfully reinterpreting. The ending feels amazingly evocative for a short web game with a boss fight against Darude set in the basement of a Papa John's. The music is weirdly calming, juxtaposition and surprise run in the game's bloodstream, and all that for a game that simply describes itself as fun boss fight game. I want to see more games exploring the idea of stealing, subverting, remixing, and building upon existing work, spitting in the face of or playfully ruffling the hair of existing copyright holders. Maybe it's a loving tribute, maybe it's a biting parody, maybe it's both. Unfortunately, the legality of remixed works are often questionable, and when Nintendo comes serving up a cease and desist, it's hard for a smaller creator to cough up the money to fight them even if they have a valid case. IP law desperately needs to be ripped apart and rebuilt from the ground up in a way that advocates for and protects the people responsible for creating art and furthering mediums, the artists who create works, and the artists who build upon them. We can dream. Textually, Reena Game makes simple statements. Defeat all 9 bosses and see the ending, no hoverboarding. I'm worried I may be putting words into the author's mouth with my interpretations, but I don't really care. Now it's my turn to plunder. Reena Game makes plenty more statements, like fuck IP purity and isn't it amazing that you can make a beautiful game out of stretched out JPEGs of Papa John's and bouncy balls?
It was all happening again, just like it had happened before. Nothing was as it seemed, and things were crashing down like they would if it hadn't been this way before. But it was fun. It was real fun while it lasted. We couldn't think and hope and pray. Maybe someday something would clean this up. Somebody would save us. Somebody would be there, and we could say goodbye to and leave forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And that was it. And that was it.